It was a calm morning in Baker Street when I first noticed Holmes's eyes unusually fixated upon the Frost Street windowpane, as though expecting some shadowy color to emerge from the wintry mist. I, for my part, had just returned from my morning rounds and was settling by the fireplace with a newspaper when his voice, sharp and alive with expectancy, interrupted my reverie.
Hmm. Look, Watson. Observe that figure descending from the carriage. Not the posture of a merchant, nor the hesitation of a tradesman, but the direct stride of a man well acquainted with officialdom.
You astonish me, Holmes. I can scarcely discern his features through the fogged panes, much less his profession.
Elementary, my dear fellow. The brisk authority of his gait, the precise cut of his coat, and the gloved hand guarding the inner pocket, all cry out, Government Clerk of the Home Office. You shall see whether I am correct when Mrs. Hudson admits him.
Your deductions are uncanny, Holmes. Pray, what affair could bring a Home Office clerk to our door on this wintry day?
That, Watson, is precisely what we shall discover. Every arrival bears a story, and every story demands unraveling.
Ah, shush. Narration. At that instant, the expected knock reverberated through the chambers, and Mrs. Hudson's bustling steps followed. True enough, within moments, a thin gentleman of official bearing entered, cap in hand and expression clouded with unease. His eyes, ringed with fatigue, darted from Holmes to myself, as though measuring the wisdom of confiding his troubles.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, forgive this intrusion. I am Edward Faversham of the Home Office. I understand that you unearth truths where others perceive only shadows. I come with a matter most peculiar, the matter of the Crying Houset.
The Crying Houset? What is meant by that singular name, sir?
It is an old manorial dwelling on the outskirts of Islington, abandoned these past 30 years. Yet, of late, neighbors report unearthly sounds issuing nightly from its boarded halls, a lamentation most chilling, like the weeping of a woman bereaved. The locals fearing the supernatural dare not approach. The constabulary, finding nothing, dismiss it as superstition. But the Home Office suspects otherwise.
Fascinating. You speak of lamentations recurring nightly, at precise hours, or irregularly.
At precisely midnight, sir. The hour is so constant that the village clock might be set by its mournful cadence.
And no one has ventured inside during the occurrence?
None, save one constable last week who swore the wailing grew so intolerably loud as to unman him. He fled in terror, reporting no living soul within.
Spirits, indeed. But I fancy our ghost may possess flesh and bone. Watson, the adventure grows intriguing.
Then you accept the case, Holmes? Holmes?
With utmost alacrity. For what earthly mystery could be more deserving of science than a house that weeps like a widow at the stroke of midnight?
Narration. Thus commenced our involvement in the singular adventure of the Crying Houset. Within the hour, Holmes had summoned a cab, and we set forth toward Islington. The frost lay thick upon the cobbled streets, and the fog gurged low across the river, yet Holmes's mood was one of eager anticipation. I, however, confessed to a sense of unease, for the tale bore the unmistakable tincture of the uncanny.
You look troubled, Watson. Surely you do not allow childish fancies of ghosts to unman you?
Not unman me, Holmes, yet one cannot deny the strange chill evoked by such accounts. Case. The imagination paints horrors where reason sees none.
Imagination, my dear fellow, is but a tool. Honest, it aids deduction. Unrestrained, it breeds phantoms. Trust to facts, and the crying of a house will prove no more inscrutable than the ticking of a clock.
Narration presently. We arrived at the outskirts of Islington. Before us rose the Crying Houset, a gaunt and dilapidated manor, its gables sharp against the pallid sky, shutters hanging askew, ivy strangling its stone-like skeletal fingers. A hush seemed to brood upon the place, broken only by the distant bark of a dog and the creak of bare branches.
Note the shutters, Watson. Though weather-worn, they bear marks of recent fastening. Observe also the faint trail in the frost leading to the rear entrance, not the path of idle children, but of a heavier tread.
Then someone frequents this ruin despite its abandonment?
Indubitably, and more than once, as the overlapping impressions reveal. Yet, whether trespasser or tenant, that we must determine within.
Narration. Holmes's confidence lent me courage. As we entered the forbidding halls, dust lay thick upon warped floorboards, and the air was chill as a tomb. Yet amid the desolation, I perceived certain incongruities: a lamp recently trimmed, footprints in the powdery dust, and a faint odor of burning oil.
A house that weeps, Watson, but also one that breathes with life not its own. Mark my words, by midnight we shall hear this lamentation, and perhaps discern the lips that utter it.
Terminally, Neiman, and so, as dusk fell across the ruined manor, Holmes and I prepared for the vigil. My heart thudded with mingled fear and anticipation, for soon the hour would strike, and with it, the dreadful mystery of the crying houset would commence. Narration. The evening hours crept by with a silence most oppressive. Holmes and I remained in the drawing room of the desolate manor, our only light the wavering glow of two candles, their flames bending in the draught that whispered through the walked shutters. The air was heavy with dust and secrecy. My revolver lay upon my knee, though I scarcely admitted to myself why I gripped it so tightly. Holmes, for his part, smoked placidly, every wisp of tobacco a calm defiance to the shivering gloom.
The clock approaches the midnight hour, Watson. Steel yourself, for when the house begins to wail, the test of our nerves will matter less than the keenness of our observation.
My nerves are taut, Holmes, yet I shall endeavor to observe with precision. Still, I confess this business chills me more than any Afghan skirmish ever did.
War has its terrors, Watson, but they are at least explicable. Here, in this ruin, terror is compounded by ignorance. That is why we must pierce it with reason.
Narration. At the stroke of midnight, the air quivered. A low mournful wail unfurled from the upper story of the house, so chilling, so laden with grief that I confess I started to my feet in alarm. It was no trick of the wind, no creak of settling timbers. It was the unmistakable sobbing of a human voice, drawn out in a lament so desolate it seemed to seep through the very walls.
Be still, Watson. Be Notson. Mark the cadence of the sound. Notice how it reverberates, not freely, but through a confined conduit. That is no spirit. It is a contrivance.
Contrivance? By heaven, Holmes, you call this a mechanical trick? My ears hear nothing but the anguished cry of a woman.
The ears may be deceived, Watson, yet the laws of acoustics never lie. Observe, the sobbing rises not as from the open air, but as though borne through hollow pipes. We must ascend, and swiftly, before the lament ceases.
Narration. Up the creaking stairs we mounted, each step protesting beneath our weight. The cries grew louder, reverberating through the timbers like the groans of some tormented soul. My heart pounded as Holmes pressed on, his lantern raised high. At length we reached a narrow corridor, lined with warped doors, from behind which the dreadful sobbing seemed to emanate.
Note, Watson, the pattern of the sound. Each lament resonates not from a room, but from the wall itself. There must be a cavity beyond, a hollow space channeling the voice.
Then someone concealed within the walls produces these cries, but how could they endure such confinement, and to what end?
Hush! The lament falters. Quick! This panel conceals a passage. See the scratches upon the wood, the faint draught issuing from its edge. Lend me your strength, Watson.
Narration. With a groan, the panel gave way, revealing a narrow passage descending into the bowels of the house. From its black mouth issued the sobbing more distinctly, no longer muffled but raw and despairing. To others, we plunged within, lantern casting ghastly shadows upon damp stone. The air was fetid, and the sound swelled until it seemed to vibrate through my very bones.
Courage, Watson. We near the heart of the mystery. The lament is human, but whether captive or deceiver, we shall soon discover.
Narration. At length, the passage opened into a low chamber. There, hunched upon a wooden stool, was a woman, pale, gaunt, her face streaked with tears. Chains bound her wrist to the wall, and before her stood a gramophone contrivance, its horn funneling her wails upward through pipes cunningly set within the house. The sight froze me where I stood. Merciful heavens, a woman chained like some wretched spectre. Holmes, what devilry is this?
Not devilry, Watson, villainy. This poor soul has been forced to furnish the cries which terrify the neighborhood. Note the horn and the pipes, the work of an engineer versed in acoustics. But to what purpose? That remains to be learned.
Madam, fear not. You are among friends now. Who has subjected you to this cruelty?
My captor, my cousin, Henry Varnum. He covets the estate, and by frightening away all interest in its purchase, he schemes to retain it for himself at no cost. For weeks he has compelled me to sit thus to cry into his infernal machine, threatening me should I falter.
A sordid scheme indeed to cloak avarice beneath a veil of superstition. Watson, we must release her at once. Yet beware, where the victim is, the villain cannot be far.
Narration. Even as Holmes busied himself with the shackles, how dare you do King those? Sinking, a sudden movement stirred in the shadows. A figure sprang forth, a man of coarse visage, clutching a club. His eyes glowed with feral desperation as he hurled himself upon us. Halt, sir, or by heaven I fire.
Meddling fools, you shall not undo my design.
Drop your weapon, Varnum. You stand before Sherlock Holmes, and I do not advise testing my aim.
Narration. The villain, cowed by Holmes's commanding presence and the double aim of our pistols, his club clattered to the floor. In another moment, the poor woman was free of her bonds, sobbing with relief. Holmes dispatched me to summon the constabulary, while he had Varnum under guard. By dawn, the miscreant was safely in custody, his plot unveiled to the Home Office in all its sordid detail. Truly, Holmes, this adventure shall not soon fade from my memory, that a house might be made to weep, and all to serve the greed of a single man, seems more grotesque than the wildest fancy. Bleh.
Grotesque, perhaps, but elementary, once the facts were laid bare. Where others saw phantoms, I perceived but pipes and a gramophone. Deduction, my dear Watson, strips the supernatural of its veil, revealing the sordid machinery of human vice.
And yet, Holmes, though you call it elementary, I marvel still at your acumen. To discern contrivance where others hear only wails is a gift I cannot hope to emulate.
Nonsense, Watson. You possess the courage and fidelity without which my reason would stand useless. Between us, the ghosts of London shall find no rest.